Welcome back folks, my name's Shane. In today's video we're taking a look at the new Elgato Facecam Pro, which is the world's first 4K 60p webcam. This is a true 4K 60p webcam, meaning it can shoot and capture at 4K 60 with no asterisks next to it. We also get a bunch of different frame rates and resolutions, including 4K at 60 and 30p, 1080p at 60 or 30 frames per second, and 720 at 60 or 30 frames. 4K is 4 times the resolution as 1080p, and it will allow you to crop in without the same sort of degradation you'd find on a typical HD webcam. Let me give you a quick rundown of the Facecam Pro. We get a 21mm full frame equivalent focal length by default. This allows you to sit within arm's length of the camera and you'll still see a lot of the room. If you find it too wide, you can easily crop in on the image either using the Camera Hub companion software or by using OBS. The Elgato Facecam Pro Webcam features an f2.0 aperture, allowing it to be better in a low lit situation when compared with other webcams. We get 8 lens elements with an anti-reflective coating, allowing the image to be clear and sharp, especially when compared with other webcams like the Logitech C920. And we'll test that out in just a moment. While webcam sensors are far smaller than mirrorless cameras, the f2.0 aperture allows you to achieve a slight amount of subject separation if you're holding up something close to the lens. I don't know what the equivalent depth of field is when you're comparing this up against a full frame camera, but I would say it's close to around f10 or f12, which still gives you a slight amount of separation, but not a lot. And while this is a plug and play device, if you want the best experience, you need to download the free Camera Hub software. This allows you to fully control the camera. Let's take a look at the Elgato Camera Hub companion software. This is a really powerful piece of software. We get the ability to change our field of view and zoom just by using this slider over here. Now we can also store 4 different presets, A, B, C, and D. Currently, I've got B set to just punch in a little bit. As we go to C, it's going to punch in a whole lot more. And as we go to D, it's just way too close. And you notice the autofocus is struggling in this situation. Cameras don't like backlights like this. So as I go back out, it's going to work fine. Now, one thing I did notice though, is when it comes down to the white balance, I've got it set to manual. So automatic is turned off. If I was to zoom in with that feature on, my skin tones are going to go all over the place. So my suggestion is if you buy this camera and use this software, set the white balance to somewhere that looks good for your skin tones and leave it set to manual, irrespective of the rest of your lighting, because it's going to look way better. Now we can also meter the scene in a few different ways. We've got center weighted, which is what I prefer, average or spot. Spot metering means you got to get one particular spot. And average is basically the average of the scene. So I'm just going to leave that set to center weighted because most people are sitting in the center. So that's where I've got that exposure set. But if you want to set it to manual, you can do so as well. I can bring the ISO up like this. And look at that. It looks pretty great. And being that I'm actually recording at 50 frames per second, I can probably set this down a little bit to 100 shutter speed, and that will be proper motion blur now, which is fantastic. So you can set up the ISO wherever you like. The higher you bring it up, the more noise you will generally get. So just keep it anywhere that looks natural to your eye and you should be good to go. Now down here we have anti-flicker, 50 hertz or 60 hertz. Now, if you're not using the if you got this set to automatic exposure, this is when the anti-flicker will turn on. 60 hertz is for North America, Canada, all those kind of places. 50 hertz is for the PAL region. So if you understand that, if you're in Australia, New Zealand, or any other place that uses PAL, Europe, then set it to 50 hertz. You also have full control over the contrast and saturation. So contrast will affect the brightest and darkest parts of the image. Notice my shirt looks darker. Notice the computer monitor looks darker. As I bring it this way, you can see that it pulls out the black and white. So it's less extreme on both ends. I would say just leave this set to 50%. You should be good. Now the saturation will go anywhere from black and white all the way through to clown face. So yeah, just set this wherever works best for you. Now, if you've got this connected to your smartphone, you can also unlock a whole bunch of other features, which I don't have right now. I just wanted to give you a quick brief overview of this. You can also change the preview format down here. So you can go up all the way up to 4K 60p, which is 2160, all the way down to 720p at 30 frames per second. So plenty of great stuff built into this software, and it should be enough to satisfy most people. Again, if you're not in a situation where anything is changing, you can set this up once and basically forget about it. It's awesome. What you're looking at is the Elgato Facecam Pro shooting 4K at 50 frames per second, and this is how it looks. Now, of course, it's going to look very different to my mirrorless camera that I was shooting with before. This is a Sony FX3 shooting with a very fast lens on a full frame camera body, the 35mm f1.8. But in terms of webcam quality, this looks exceptional, and I'll show you that right now. And now looking at the built-in webcam on my M1 MacBook Air. Now, this isn't very nice whatsoever. Not only is the angle bad, but the skin tones look horrible, it's grainy, and it's upscaled from a much lower resolution. So this doesn't look good at all. And now we're back to the Elgato. Take a look at this. This is a much more premium image, and for a webcam, it's doing a remarkable job. And this webcam is the OBSBot. Now, I reviewed this a little while back. I was very impressed. It caps out at 4K at 30 frames per second, but through some wizardry in Open Broadcaster software, I'm hoping this doesn't look too bad on the timeline, so it'll be upscaling the frame rate as well. Now, the skin tones on this looks very good, but it's lost a lot of the magic that the Elgato had. Let's switch between them. And back to the Elgato. Instantly, I can see this just on Open Broadcaster software here, how much better it looks. Let's switch it back. And back to the OBSBot, which is its closest comparison, at least here in the studio. And now you're looking at the Logitech C920 running at 1080p at 50 frames per second, then upscaled on the timeline. I couldn't get this to record at 4K 50 no matter what I did with OBS, so it's upscaled in Final Cut. Now, just looking at the screen here, I'm a big fan of the skin tones. The skin tones look great. It doesn't have the same premium look as the Elgato, but I wouldn't expect that given the age of the Logitech, but I think it's doing a really great job. Let us know what you think of this compared to the other three webcams. While the auto white balance does a great job at working out a scene, even with fairly complex lighting, for best results, I still recommend setting it manually. The main reason I suggest this is if you're using the zoom feature, as you zoom in and out digitally, the auto white balance will adjust, which means your skin tones will change. So leave it set manually for the best results. Now, if you're unhappy with any of the changes you made within the software, you can easily reset those changes with a hardware key on the bottom of the webcam. This is a quick and easy way of getting everything back to default, or of course you can just use the software. Including the box, we get a nice long USB-C cable, a mount for positioning the webcam on the monitor, and the camera. The mount's not required thanks to this 1/4 screw point underneath, which is compatible with all types of tripods. There's a few things to mention about the Facecam Pro. One, this thing is huge, weighing in at 240 grams. This is the biggest and heaviest webcam I've ever used. If you're on a MacBook or gaming laptop, you might want to buy a separate tripod, and I'll link to my recommendation down in the description below. I found this way too top heavy for my MacBook Air. For those using a typical gaming monitor or external monitor on a PC, this won't be a problem. Secondly, the autofocus is decent, but it's not perfect. When I had my microphone in the way of my face a couple of times, it would sometimes go to the background or stay locked onto whatever was closest to the camera. It didn't do it all of the time, and I would lock it to manual focus if I was using it for my particular setup. All right, let's wrap this video up. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons and also how it compared up against the other webcams. So I think in terms of image quality, field of view, and overall quality, the Elgato gets the win, as it should, coming in at 515 Australian dollars. Now, if you live in the US, that's 299 USD. So it's not cheap, but if you want to check it out, I'll link it down below. While Elgato have done an excellent job releasing a webcam that can shoot 4K 60, it's still not the same sort of 4K 60 that you'd find out of a mirrorless camera. As you can no doubt see looking at this camera, I could use this in a live streaming situation and get much better results, but this is a very expensive camera with a very expensive lens. But there is still a huge difference between webcam quality and mirrorless quality. Even some of the entry-level cameras or micro 4/3 cameras with smaller sensors will give you a far more premium image than this webcam. But if you just want something you can plug in, customize with a few different zoom options, this makes the process a whole lot easier. And comparing it up against my two other webcams, both the Logitech C920 and the OBSBot, I don't think there was any comparison. I think the Elgato left them for dead, as it should based on its price. Webcams are still a very viable option for streamers, content creators, gamers who don't want to have a really expensive camera taking up space on their desk or behind their desk. Webcams just make the whole process a whole lot easier, and I love the fact you can change the field of view nicely just by moving a single slider. So I think for the right customer, this will make a whole lot of sense. It's a premium webcam with a premium price, but overall, it does a really great job. Let us know what you think. Thanks for watching. My name's Shane, and I'll catch you soon. See ya.